You will have a child. Will you give birth?" The doctor's voice did not sound good. "Miss, can you hear me?" "Yes, of course," Brittany replied softly. She struggled to get up from the chair. Her legs felt weak, her hands shook a little, and her mind was trying to understand what was happening. "When you decide whether to continue your pregnancy or not, please make an appointment," the doctor said again, and turned off the monitor screen. "Just don't wait too long to decide. It may be too late, but I wouldn't recommend ending the pregnancy with your Rh factor. It could lead to problems in the future. You might not be able to have children if you choose that option." It seemed like Brittany didn't hear the doctor's words. She left the office without saying goodbye and slowly walked down the hospital corridor. She saw expectant mothers along the way. Their faces showed happiness and excitement. Maybe they couldn't wait to hold their babies, to hear their first cries, and welcome their little ones. Did Brittany feel the same way? Not right now. She had a hard time understanding what had just happened to her. She expected many things, but not this. She should have known better. After all, she was an adult and was aware of where babies came from. "What should I do now?" Brittany wondered as she sat on a bench outside the hospital. "Right now, my baby is still tiny. No one can tell that I'm pregnant, but in 4 months, I won't be able to hide it anymore. What have I done? Why did I agree to my brother's insistence and put myself in this situation? What a fool I am." Brittany sat and remembered the events of the past months. In June, after finishing her exams, she returned to her hometown. After high school, she decided to enroll in a teaching school. She had always dreamed of working with children and becoming a teacher. She felt happy to leave home after high school and attend college. Finally, she could breathe easily and stop living under her father's strict rules. She didn't know why, but her father was always critical of her. He always found something to blame her for. Sometimes Brittany felt like her dad didn't love her. She couldn't remember him ever being affectionate with her. He didn't treat her mother with much kindness either. Her mother explained her husband's behavior by saying that was just who he was. She said her parents had a similar relationship, so this type of behavior seemed normal to them. Even in her childhood, Brittany noticed that her father treated her brother differently. He spoke nicely to him and never scolded him. He even admired him for no reason. Kevin, her brother, was 7 years older than her. He had finished school but didn't go to college. He started working at a car repair shop, often stayed out late, and spent time with friends. Yet their father ignored all this, thinking that such a lifestyle was fine for a young man. He would say he should enjoy his freedom while he could. "What are you saying?" Her mother tried to reason with him. "Kevin's lifestyle won't lead to anything good," but her father interrupted, pounding his fists on the table to silence her. "Kevin's a real man. He's been working and making money since he turned 18. Their family lived in an old building, and their small 3-room apartment was cramped. Brittany and Kevin had their own rooms, while their parents slept in the living room. Doug worked as a mechanic at a local factory, and Kate worked at a sewing factory. Their salaries were modest, and they struggled to support their 2 children. When Kevin started working, things got a little easier, but lately his earnings seemed to disappear. His parents had no idea where he was spending his money. Kate had tried to ask him several times, but Kevin's answers were vague. He made it clear she didn't need to know. He felt supported by his father, which might be why he treated their mother poorly. Brittany watched this and couldn't figure out how to protect her mother. She loved her brother and her parents, too. They were her family. Brittany also had her grandmother, Rachel, who lived a few kilometers away. Brittany often visited her, and the journey took about 30 minutes. At the beginning of July, everything seemed fine. Brittany was enjoying her summer break. She had just turned 18 at the end of April, and it felt like the time to live and enjoy life. Finally, she could go out with her friends. They invited her to a local club, but her father strictly forbade her from going to such places. To be honest, a girl raised with strict rules didn't really want to go clubbing. Brittany didn't know how to feel about her father, whether to love him, fear him, or hate him. She tried to avoid him as much as possible, often running to her grandmother's house, where she always felt welcomed. "How's everything at home?" Rachel asked her while brewing herbal tea. Brittany had just rushed to her grandmother's place to find some peace. Her father was late for work, and she had only waited for her mother to tell her where she was going. "Dad is always unhappy about something. Mom stays quiet, not wanting to argue. Kevin does whatever he wants." "Grandma, why doesn't my dad love me?" Brittany asked. I've told you more than once, dear. Doug is just hard to understand. That's who he is. He loves you in his own way, Rachel explained kindly. He has a strange way of showing love. Britney sighed. I think I'll take your offer, Grandma, and stay with you for the summer. I can't stand being in the same apartment as my dad. I'm used to being away during the school year. I don't mind, but you'll only make him angrier if you do that. Live with me, but don't forget about your parents. Have some compassion for your mother. She was so looking forward to your summer break. She misses you, Britney reassured her. Don't worry, Grandma, I'll talk to her about it. Let me tell you about all I've learned during the school year. You can't imagine how much I enjoy being in school. In the garden next to the old house, a lamp lit up late into the night as Rachel and Britney shared stories. The grandmother was delighted to have her granddaughter nearby and tried to surround her with love and care. Was different from her sister, and it often seemed like they were not even related. Britney didn't understand why her father was so gentle with her brother while he was sometimes harsh with her. Her mother and grandmother also couldn't explain it. On a quiet summer evening, under a lamp, Britney felt comfy and relaxed. She noticed her eyelids becoming heavy, probably because of the warm atmosphere filled with honey-like scents. After her grandmother tucked her into bed, Britney enjoyed the fresh smell of clean sheets. That night she had bright and happy dreams. When she woke up, it was nearly noon. She stretched in bed and heard her grandmother's loving voice say, "Good morning, dear." The sound made Britney smile. "You slept so well that I didn't want to wake you. Now that you're awake, I'm waiting for you in the gazebo. I baked some delicious muffins." Britney quickly got ready and washed up, then hurried to the gazebo, planting a kiss on her grandmother's cheek. "Granny, I love you so much. I'm so glad to have you," she said, looking into her grandmother's warm eyes. "What shall we do after we eat?" Her grandmother replied, "I saw strawberries in the garden yesterday. It's time to pick them and make jam." "You have a sharp eye, Granny," Britney said, excited. "Let's do that!" Her grandmother's house was small, with 2 bedrooms, a living room, an entryway, and a big kitchen. Britney loved the veranda, where it was nice to relax during the summer. Close to the house was a railroad track. Since she was young, she had grown used to the sound of trains passing by as she drifted off to sleep. She often imagined going on trips by train with her family to the seaside, a place she had always wanted to visit. Sadly, her family couldn't afford it, and the seaside remained a dream until her senior year in high school. Then, some students, including Britney, were chosen to go to a summer camp by the coast as a reward for their hard work. She remembered how her mother prepared her for the trip, sewing plenty of clothes, which amazed her. Britney enjoyed 3 unforgettable weeks at the camp, made new friends, and felt truly happy. While she cleaned, memories from her school years came back to her, especially when she found photographs that her grandmother had kept on a shelf. One showed Britney and her brother Kevin during their first days of school. The photos reminded her of graduation. She hadn't seen many of her classmates since the last prom. Some stayed in their hometown, while others, like Britney, headed to the capital. Corey, a classmate, had moved to Hungary for university. Since 5th grade, Britney had had a secret crush on Corey. Many girls openly tried to win his affection, but Britney never did that. She preferred watching from afar as Corey received attention from others, feeling left out. Eventually, she stopped thinking about him. In contrast, Robin, another classmate, actively sought Corey's attention. She dressed to impress, wore makeup, and always seemed to be near him. While Corey did notice Robin, their brief relationship ended in the 10th grade. Robin didn't give up easily. She was known for being dramatic and confrontational about Corey. After returning to her hometown, Britney saw Robin a few times. The girl hadn't changed much. She was still bold in her style. Britney's friend Anna told her that Robin was hoping to rekindle things with Corey. As summer approached, Corey hadn't come back home, leaving many wondering what he was up to. One day, while cleaning, Britney missed a call from her mother. She had turned her phone off to sleep peacefully. When she saw missed calls, she called her mom back. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't hear you call. Is everything okay?" she asked. Her mother responded, "Yes, dear. Everything is fine. Your father asked why you went to your grandmother's. He thinks you should come home." Britney replied, "Mom, Can you tell him I'm grown and can choose where to live? I'm helping Grandma here and he should come help fix the creaky porch instead. Her mother agreed to pass on the message, though she seemed worried about how her father would react. Britney assured her mom, "He'll stay here a day or two longer. Don't worry about me." Later, as she carried a bucket of water to the garden, Britney sat on a bench and looked for shade from the hot sun. Her grandmother, too, was resting peacefully inside. Soon, Rachel woke up and thanked Britney for her help. Then, she began a serious conversation. "I'm not young anymore," she said gently. "I want you to know that I've made arrangements for you if anything happens to me. I'm leaving this house to you." Surprised, Britney begged, "Grandma, please don't talk about that. You're going to be with me for a long time." Rachel smiled sadly. "I hope so too, but we should be prepared. I want you to take care of this house and garden. They mean a lot to me." Britney promised, "I will, Grandma. Let's not talk about this anymore. You're going to be around for a long time." She hugged her grandmother tightly, knowing how much they meant to each other. Rachel had worked as a nurse at the local hospital for many years. For some reason, she never got married. At 28, she had a daughter named Kate, and she dedicated her life to raising her. Rachel rarely talked about her past, and sometimes Kate thought that bringing up old memories made Rachel sad. So she didn't ask many questions. The owner of the car wash, Michael, was quite the opportunist. When a chance to partner with a successful businessman named Eric came up, he was thrilled. Michael wasted no time and invited his friend Derek to discuss their new project and enjoy some leisure time. He asked one of his employees, "How should we entertain Derek?" "I'm not sure," the employee said, scratching his head. "Maybe we could take him to the sauna and offer him a nice drink to relax after work." Michael thought about it, but felt that wouldn't be impressive enough. "We need something memorable, something he'll remember," he said. "What if we invited some girls? Things are always more lively with company." His employee scratched his head again. Finding the right ones quickly might not be easy. Michael was deep in thought when a knock on the door interrupted. Kevin cautiously came in and looked nervous. "Did you need something, Michael?" he asked. "Yes, Kevin. When will you pay me back? You've been promising for 6 months, and the interest is building up," Michael said firmly. "I'll pay you back, I promise," Kevin said. He tried to leave, but Michael stopped him, saying, "We need to finish this conversation." On Sunday, Kate decided to go home. Rachel packed her a bag full of homemade jars and sent her off to relatives. Kate struggled to carry the heavy bag up to her apartment. "Need some help?" a familiar voice asked. Startled, Kate turned to see Corey, a classmate of hers, smiling brightly. He was dressed neatly, looking sharp. "What a surprise, Corey. Where did you come from?" she asked, feeling a bit shy. "I was passing by and saw you struggling. I thought I'd help," Corey said. "Thanks, but I can manage," Kate replied, though Corey easily took the bag and helped her up the stairs. "Here we are," he said, placing the bag down. "It's been a while. How about we catch up tonight? You can tell me about school and our classmates." "There's not much to share," Kate said quietly. "I don't come to the city often." "All right, then tell me about yourself," Corey insisted. "He'll be at the cinema at 7. Will you join me?" When Kate got home, her father asked, "Who have you been talking to?" "This is Corey, my classmate," she replied and walked inside. "Is he the mayor's son? You seem to be moving fast," her father said, chattering excitedly. "Dad, it was just a chance meeting. He helped me with my bags," Kate explained. "Don't overlook someone like that," he mumbled more to himself. "You never know." Kate decided to go take a shower, feeling anxious about what her father might be thinking. The water felt refreshing, but she couldn't shake off the embarrassment from her earlier encounter with Corey. Once finished, she looked in the mirror and took a deep breath. Her hair was messy, and she felt a bit worn out from the day. She didn't want to see her father, so she quickly closed her bedroom door. As the evening approached, Kate spent her time reading. Around 6, she thought of Corey. Should she go to the cinema? She wasn't sure how she felt about him anymore. Deciding it would be nice to go, she prepared herself, styled her hair, and slipped into a blue dress. When she arrived at the cinema, she spotted Corey right away. He was waiting with a big bouquet of flowers. "You look wonderful, Kate," he said as he handed her the roses. "I couldn't help but notice you today." Really? She asked, a bit surprised. We missed the movie? No, it starts in about 15 minutes, he replied. You truly are beautiful. They took their seats in the auditorium, and after the movie, Corey suggested a walk along the water. They talked and laughed until it was late, and when Kate got home, her parents were awake waiting for her. Her father watched her curiously, and finally he asked, You went for a walk with Corey, is that true? Britney had never come home that late before. Yes, Mom, I ran into Corey by accident today, Britney replied. We went to see a movie, walked around town, and talked about old school memories. She clearly didn't want to say much more. Keep it up, said Kevin, her brother. Don't waste time. Win Corey over and marry him. Stop it, Britney said firmly. I'm not planning to marry anyone, and I don't need Corey. You're turning down someone like him? Their father added. Leave Britney alone, their mother said, stepping in to support her daughter. Britney slipped into her room, not wanting to continue the pointless talk. About 30 minutes later, the apartment was quiet. Britney took a bath, got into bed, and began thinking about the day. It's strange, she thought. I never expected to see Corey again, and now he's suddenly interested in me. He didn't even notice me back in school. Why now? Could this be real? I hope I don't fall for him again. Her thoughts slowly faded as she drifted into a deep sleep and didn't wake until morning. A few days passed, and to her surprise, Corey kept trying to get close to her. He brought flowers almost every day and left them at her door. Saturday seemed like a normal day. Britney had gone to help her grandmother with some gardening and later cleaned the apartment. Her mom was still at the market, so Britney started making dinner on her own. Her dad was working, and as usual, no one really knew where Kevin was. People just assumed he was either at the auto shop or off doing something of his own. As she cooked, the kitchen filled with delicious smells. She hummed softly, focused on the soup. Britney! Britney! Help! Kevin's voice came from the hallway and sounded serious. She quickly turned off the stove and ran toward him. Kevin was sitting on the floor, covering his face with his hands. Britney saw his hands and forehead were scratched and had small cuts. His clothes were dusty, and his hair was messy. Kevin, what happened to you? Were you in a fight? She asked, scared. Help me up and take me to the bathroom, he said, trying to stay calm. Please, just hurry. I don't want Mom and Dad to see me like this. Britney did as he asked. She brought him a towel and helped clean the small wounds on his face and hands. Once he had calmed down a little, she asked, Kevin, what happened? Tell me the truth. Britney, he said, looking worried. Only you can help me now. I've really messed up. If you don't help me, I might not make it through the week. What do you mean? What's going on? She asked. I was using a friend's car today, Kevin began. I had an urgent job outside the city. But something bad happened. I accidentally hit a young guy. He looked about 14 or 15. I stopped in time so he didn't get seriously hurt. Just a few scratches. But it turns out his father is someone very powerful. Then an hour later, some men came after me. They took me to a garage and beat me up. I barely got away. Now they're threatening me. They want a lot of money. If I don't pay them, they said they'll come after me again. Wait, Britney said. If the boy is okay, why don't you go to the police? That's what they're there for. Police? No, you don't understand. These people have connections. If I go to the police, they'll make it worse. Please, Britney, only you can help me. But how can I help? She asked. They said if you go to the Risen Hotel by the river tonight at 11, they'll let me go. That's all. You just have to go. Maybe they'll offer you some kind of job waitressing. Maybe. I don't know. But they said if you go, they'll stop bothering me. We can earn the money and pay them back if we work together. It'll be nearby just in case. Britney paused. Something didn't feel right. But Kevin was her brother. She wanted to believe him. Okay, she said quietly, placing her hand on his shoulder. I'll go, but don't tell Mom or Dad. Of course, Kevin replied. Mom's heart isn't strong. She can't handle stress like this. I won't say anything, she promised, then went to her room. She still felt something was off, but she didn't know what. Later that evening, after their parents went to bed around 10, Britney got ready. She put on jeans, a shirt, and a sweater and braided her hair neatly. She left the house quietly. Outside, a black car was waiting. Kevin sat next to the driver and waved at her. Britney got in the back seat, unsure of what to expect. The inside of the car was dark. Besides the driver, another man was seated in the front. He wore a wide hat that covered most of his face, but Britney noticed his thin hands rubbing together. "Britney, right?" the man asked. "Yes," she said, trying to stay calm. "Where are we going? What do you want from me? Kevin told me a little, but I want to hear from you. What's going on?" "You're strong-willed," the man said. "I like that. I think you'll do well for what we have in mind." "What is that?" "Stop talking in circles," Britney said. She glanced out the window and realized they were leaving the city. Trees lined the road now, and she didn't know which way they were heading. After about 20 minutes, the driver pulled off the road and turned off the lights. Britney's heart raced, but she tried not to show her fear. "Listen carefully," the man in the hat said. "Do exactly what I tell you. In 5 minutes, we will reach a big country house where some important people are gathered. Your job is to bring food to the room where they are resting and set the table. There are 2 other girls working here, so you won't be alone. Got it?" "Yes," Britney replied softly, feeling nervous. The rest of the ride went as the stranger had said. When they arrived at the house, her companion got out first. After he went inside, the driver let Britney out and guided her to a side entrance of the building. In the hallway, 2 girls in matching light dresses and high heels welcomed her. "Finally! We thought you wouldn't come. Hurry up! We need to get ready to go out. You look like this." "What's wrong with my clothes?" Britney protested. "I'm just going to work in my jeans and shirt." The other girl said, "You'll get kicked out of here if you go like that." Britney wanted to argue but thought of her brother and stayed quiet. "Here, put this on quickly," one of the girls insisted, pointing to a dress similar to theirs. Britney changed quickly, and the girls helped her with makeup and hair. Looking in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. "Are you ready?" A stranger, Ian, suddenly appeared. "Yes, Ian," the girls chimed in. "Go on. I need to talk to the new girl for a moment," he said, looking at Britney with a pleased expression. "Listen closely. You didn't come here just to serve drinks. If you don't do what I say, you will never see your brother again. So be smart and listen to me. You, Molly, and Joanna will set the table and then come back here. But your work doesn't end there. Your brother's safety is much more important. You'll have to serve the guests in every way. The most important guest is named Darren. He is tall and dressed nicely. He will be sitting quietly by the fireplace. After the meal, you will meet him on the 2nd floor. I'll take you there, but remember, if he asks you about yourself, say you are working like the other girls. Do you understand?" Britney listened in silence, realizing her worst fears were coming true, and escaping was unlikely. "Why are you silent? Don't you care about your brother? Do as I said, and he will be safe," Ian repeated, studying her closely. "Okay, I will do what you say," Britney said quietly. She felt like a different person, her thoughts racing. "Good. Now let's get to work," he said, calling back Molly and Joanna. Britney followed her new friends to the kitchen, where she prepared drinks and fruit on a tray. A few minutes later, she entered the room where the men were gathered, her heart racing in fear. Among the guests was Michael, the owner of the auto shop where her brother worked, the mayor, an unknown man, and Corey, who seemed shocked to see her. "Wow, I didn't expect to see you here," he said loudly as he approached Britney. "All this time you pretended to be nice, but—" Corey's words were interrupted as he left the room, and the other men sat quietly watching her. Luckily, Molly and Joanna helped with serving drinks. Britney felt a mix of shame, fear, and hopelessness. "Are you okay?" asked the unknown man, reaching for her hand. "It's stuffy in here, and your hands are so cold. Let me warm you up," he said. Realizing this man was Derek, she felt anxious as he took her hand and led her to another room. The next morning, Britney woke up in a strange bed, feeling unwell and alone. She heard water running in the bathroom, realizing Derek was in the shower. Quickly, she got out of bed, determined to escape before anyone saw her. All she found was the dress they had made her wear. Wondering where her clothes were, she sat on the bed, unsure of what to do. Just then, Derek emerged from the shower in his robe. "Britney, that's your name, right? Why did you come to this house?" he asked, sitting on the bed. "Isn't it obvious? I came to make some money just like my friends," she answered, avoiding eye contact. That doesn't seem right, he replied. I want to know why you're really here. Britney felt tears coming and covered her face, unable to explain. Please help me find my clothes. This house is big and I don't remember which room I changed in, she said softly. Derek didn't respond but left the room and returned a few minutes later with a bag. Maybe these are yours. Get dressed and meet me outside. I'll wait for you in the yard, he said, tossing the bag on the bed. She quickly put on her jeans and shirt, ignoring the dress. It was now late in the morning and the sun was shining brightly. As she tied her sneakers, she caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. Her hair was messy, her eyes wide with worry, and her lips were chapped. She barely recognized the girl staring back at her. Oh God, what have you done? She asked herself, turning away from the mirror. She couldn't stand being in this room any longer. Leaving the bedroom, she walked down the hall and down the stairs, relieved she didn't encounter anyone. When she entered the room where she met Corey, the weight of her thoughts overwhelmed her. She desperately wanted to leave this unsettling place behind and forget it all. While waiting in the yard next to his large black SUV, Derek asked Britney to get in the car and open the door for her. She gave him her address and then closed her eyes. Being near him made her uneasy. During the drive, Derek didn't ask her any questions. They drove in silence, both lost in their own thoughts. Britney felt certain he disliked her, just as she disliked herself. She didn't know how to move forward after everything that had happened, and she worried about what her parents would say when they found out. How would her mother, with her delicate heart, react to the news? How would her father, who had never shown much affection, respond? Once they arrived, Britney quietly got out of the car and closed the door without saying goodbye. Derek quickly drove away, leaving Britney standing there for a few moments. She felt too weak to go back inside. Welcome back, Corey called out, breaking her daze. You've been gone for a long time. Did you earn much last night? She tried to walk away, but he followed her, shouting to everyone around. People stared at her as Corey kept talking loudly, making things awkward. Corey, go home and rest, she said, trying to ignore him. She could smell the alcohol on his breath. He had clearly been drinking all night. Just then, her mother Kate rushed out. Where have you been? Come here so we can clean you up, Kate exclaimed, noticing her daughter's state. Britney hugged her mother and started to cry, feeling overwhelmed. Mom, I'm sorry. Please forgive me, she kept saying as she climbed the stairs. Why do you keep embarrassing us? Her father Doug shouted. He struck Britney, angry about her situation and what Corey had said. He yelled about how she brought shame to the family. After a few more harsh words and actions from him, he fell to his knees, crying. Britney could no longer take the humiliation. She ran out of the apartment to her grandmother's house, not stopping until she collapsed onto the couch there. Rachel, her grandmother, didn't ask questions, but instead let Britney calm down. About an hour later, Britney stopped crying and eventually fell asleep. However, her dreams were troubled, haunted by everything she had faced. She awoke around 3 p.m. and sighed. I wish I could just sleep and forget everything. Rachel, hearing her, said, Life is a gift, and you should cherish it. Let's get up. I've made some tea. You can freshen up and relax. You're safe here. Britney slowly got up and headed to the shower. The water stung the scrapes on her skin, but it felt like nothing compared to the emotional pain she was feeling. Time passed, and she stayed with her grandmother, not returning home or hearing from Kevin. The silence about the troubling events gave her a little hope. Rachel didn't press her for details, knowing Britney would open up when she was ready. As the end of August approached, Britney prepared to go back to school, thinking it might help her find some relief from her emotions. One day, Rachel returned home with Britney's mother. Kate seemed anxious but held it together. Britney, how are you? She asked as soon as she entered the house. I'm fine, Mom. Really? Everything's calm at Grandma's, and I don't want to leave just yet. School is starting soon. I think it will help me, Britney replied, giving her mother a reassuring hug. How's Kevin? Kate questioned. As the same as always. I worry about him, Britney said softly. Just stay here for a while longer. It's easier for everyone, Kate suggested. I understand, Mom. I hope things will get better for Dad, too, Britney replied. Her mother further expressed her concern about the rumors spreading in the neighborhood, saying they were untrue. She reminded Britney that she was a kind person and that people were upset about the situation. Later, as Britney was getting ready to leave, she took time to talk with her grandmother in the kitchen. "Grandma, why didn't you ever get married?" she finally asked, curious for a long time. "It just wasn't meant to be," Rachel replied with a sigh. "I loved someone deeply once, but it was complicated. His parents didn't approve of me." Britney listened, surprised and fascinated by her grandmother's story. Rachel shared how a wealthy family environment had overshadowed her hopes, making it impossible to pursue that love. The conversation continued, with Rachel sharing memories, and Britney felt a little lighter, grateful to have her grandmother by her side. "I had been the girl who shared her feelings with someone special. After a while, I realized I was going to have a baby. Feeling I had no place in their family, I left the man I loved and never saw him again. I gave birth to Kate and tried to move on, but it was hard." An older woman listened as I confided my feelings to her. "Did you ever forget him?" she asked. "No," I replied, shaking my head. "Sometimes I still feel the same way." "Did you want to see him again?" she pressed. "Of course I did," I said, wanting to end the conversation. "But what's the point now?" "Does he not know he has a daughter?" my mother asked, curious. "Why would it matter?" I said. "He has his own family. We have lived our lives separately, and there's no use regretting it." I wiped away a tear, trying to stay strong. My mother recognized that these memories troubled me and decided to change the subject. Though she wanted to know more about him, she knew it wouldn't help to ask questions I wasn't ready to answer. "I want to show you something," I suddenly remembered, reaching for a small box. Inside was a heart-shaped pendant I had received from Kate's father. He said it was one of a kind and would bring happiness. Though I had never worn it, I wanted to pass it on to you. "Thank you, Grandma," my mother said, admiring the piece. "It's beautiful. I think it's worth a lot, but its true value is in the memories we shared when we felt hopeful about the future," I explained. The next day, as my mother said goodbye, she felt a bit lighter. Still, she soon realized the past would always be a part of her. At college, she met a new roommate named Laura. Laura had come from a different school and was excited to be away from her parents. From the start, Laura showed a tough attitude, refusing to help with cleaning or chores. She was attractive and enjoyed going out with friends. When she first met my mother, she thought she was stuck with a boring roommate who only wanted to study. "Why do you have to be so boring?" Laura asked one day while getting ready. "Let's go have some fun." "I'd rather clean and cook," my mother replied, standing up from her bed. "But the room is a mess," Laura complained, starting to put on makeup. My mother ignored her and began cleaning. But as she stood up on a chair, she suddenly felt weak and fainted. When she woke up, her friend Vivian was hovering over her, worried. "You scared us," Vivian said. "Did you hit your head?" "No, I just feel a bit sick," my mother replied. "Maybe you should see a doctor," Laura suggested. "I'm running late already. You can handle it," my mother mumbled, feeling queasy again. After some time in the bathroom, she returned to find Vivian deep in thought. "You should see a doctor," Vivian insisted. "You've been feeling bad for days. Did something happen over the summer?" "I didn't do anything," my mother insisted, trying to avoid the question. "Maybe you should buy a test to be sure," Vivian said. "My plan is to see a doctor on Monday. They'll know for certain," my mother replied, lying back on her bed, feeling overwhelmed. Sunday passed quietly. Laura called to say she wouldn't be back until Monday, likely enjoying her weekend away. My mother was left to think about her situation. As the weekend went on, she hoped everything would turn out fine, but she couldn't shake the feeling of anxiety. A friend named Evan stopped by, and they started looking for jobs together. Both my mother and her friend needed extra work. They hoped to find positions that would allow them to work evenings. "I called about a job at a cafe. They need waitresses starting at 3 p.m., Evan said. "At 8 p.m., which works for us. Let's check it out after class tomorrow," Vivian suggested, mentioning her friend's room for the 5th time. Britney knew Vivian was concerned about her and wanted to help her feel better. Her friend had tried several times to get Britney to share what had happened during the brief summer, but Britney just couldn't find the words. "Okay," Britney agreed. "Just make sure to help me out in the morning during class. You'll run to the hospital and come back to the institute after class. Well, sort out the job situation then. The night felt long and restless. Britney did manage to sleep for a little while, but she had a nightmare that replayed the events at the big country house in vivid detail. She woke up, scared, with sweat on her forehead. Her hands shook, and she struggled to breathe. After a few moments, Britney got out of bed, poured a glass of water, and drank it quickly. She crawled back under her covers, but could only find sleep as dawn broke. The alarm clock rang at 7 a.m., and when Britney got out of bed, she still felt ill. Nausea rose in her throat, her head spun, and a headache made everything worse. After quickly getting ready, she decided to head straight to the hospital. The trip would take just over half an hour, but her troubling thoughts made it hard for her to enjoy the lovely September morning with its clear blue sky and bright sun. The doctors wouldn't start seeing patients until 8:30 a.m. Britney was waiting her turn at the doctor's office when she decided to read a book. When it was her turn, she explained her situation, hoping for good news. The doctor examined her and took notes, then asked her a few more questions. Finally, the doctor informed her that she was going to have a baby. The doctor advised against having an abortion, explaining that it might make it harder for her to get pregnant in the future. Confused and upset, Britney sat on a bench in the hospital courtyard. She felt responsible for everything that had happened. Going home wasn't an option, and she realized she might need to pause her studies for a while. Just then, her phone rang. It was Vivian, who had been waiting for her at school. "Hello, Vivian. Don't wait for me. I'm not coming to class today," Britney said. "What did they tell you at the hospital? Are you pregnant?" Vivian asked eagerly. "Let's talk tonight. I'm not sure what's happening right now," Britney replied, then hung up and walked through the hospital park, lost in her thoughts. She noticed the autumn leaves crunching under her feet and felt the gentle breeze on her face. When she reached the pond, she sat on a bench, alone except for an old man feeding the ducks nearby. At that moment, she thought of her grandmother, who always knew how to give the best advice. She called Rachel, who answered quickly. "Grandma, it's good to hear your voice. How have you been?" Britney asked, unsure how to start the conversation. "I'm doing well, dear. I miss you. I can tell something's not right. What's wrong?" Rachel replied, sensing her granddaughter's distress. Britney couldn't hold back her tears. "I need to tell you everything," she finally said. "Take a deep breath. Why don't you come over for a few days?" "I'd love to see you," Rachel encouraged. "Okay, I will," Britney agreed. And after hanging up, she went to the school and filled out a request to take time off before heading to her grandmother's house. By the evening, Britney was sitting in her grandmother's kitchen while Rachel poured tea. "Enough silence. Tell me what's happening. You look unwell," Rachel urged, gently stroking Britney's hair. "I'm fine, Grandma. It's just—" Britney hesitated, not knowing how to share her news. "Whatever it is, I will support you. Just tell me," Rachel said, noticing her granddaughter's tears. Finally, Britney confessed, "I'm pregnant, and I think you'll be raising the child alone." Rachel was surprised, but replied with kindness, "That's a blessing, my dear." "What do you mean?" "There's no father to help me," Britney expressed her worries. "I raised your mother on my own, remember?" Rachel reminded her. "You can do this too. Just make sure to talk to the father about it." "There isn't a father, and I don't want to see him again," Britney replied, tears still in her eyes. Rachel softened. "You need to tell me who he is. I can't help if I don't know." Britney recounted the events that had led to her situation, sharing how things had gone wrong. Her grandmother listened carefully, stroking her head and deep in thought. "You should have thought carefully before getting involved with him. He can be quite the troublemaker," Rachel whispered, her disappointment clear. They both understood the situation they faced. "Now we need to think about what to do next," Rachel said, moving closer to Britney. Britney replied, "I don't want to find out more about him. I just want to focus on my baby. We'll raise this child together. Don't worry about anything. I may not have much, but it'll help however I can," Rachel assured her granddaughter. "Just don't tell my parents, please. They don't need to know," Britney asked. They talked about their plans for the future without realizing what challenges lay ahead. Over time, Britney started to feel more settled. She began taking better care of herself and was determined to make things work for her baby. Britney learned she was expecting a boy and decided to name him Paul. She visited her grandmother regularly, carrying warmth and support between them, even when outside news brought unexpected challenges. Britney didn't want to see her father, who she felt was disappointed in her. "Darling, I've missed you so much," Kate said with a warm hug. "Look at you, your belly is starting to show. I'm about to be a grandmother. You and Mom really kept this a secret." "I'm sorry, Mom. I just didn't want to add to your worries. I know how Dad might react," Britney confessed, remembering the uncomfortable way her father treated her after an upsetting event. "He's not here now, but I know he would unleash his anger on me." "I can't understand it," Kate mused. "He's acting like he doesn't care about us. We all make mistakes." "How have you been?" Britney asked. "I've been thinking about you a lot. And Kevin?" Kate sighed. "He's still working, but he started hanging out with a bad crowd. It's worrying me." "Don't worry, Mom. Kevin can make his own choices," Britney comforted her, pouring some herbal tea. "Only Grandma knows how to make this. In spring, we'll come visit with the baby. You're always welcome." "Of course, my dear, but remember to take care of yourself. Call me during the day, not at night. Your father doesn't let me have peace after you call," Kate replied, looking concerned. Britney shook her head and said, "I've saved a little money for you. Please take it." "Thank you, Mom, but I can manage on my own," Britney said gently, refusing the money. The evening passed with laughter and stories, but the next morning, Britney woke up feeling unwell. Her grandmother noticed right away and called for help. An ambulance came quickly, and after a checkup, doctors decided she needed to stay in the hospital. "Don't worry, everything will be all right," Rachel assured her. "Just listen to the doctors and try to relax." "Please tell Mom to visit me," Britney asked as she settled in the ambulance. In her hospital room, there was another woman, about 40 years old, who was 8 months pregnant and chatting on her phone. Britney learned that the woman had 2 children at home with her husband. The woman didn't notice Britney until she finished her conversation. "Well, hello, I'm Kristen. What's your name?" she greeted. "Hi, I'm Britney," she responded, tired and trying to relax. The pain in her abdomen had eased a bit, and all she wanted was peace. "How old are you?" Kristen asked. "I'm 18. "Do you think I'm in high school?" Britney replied, feeling judged. "You look young. How did you end up pregnant so soon?" Kristen continued. "I'm not the first person to have a baby without being married. You'll do my best to raise my child," Britney defended herself, feeling uncomfortable. "That's true," Kristen nodded. "But it's not easy to raise a child alone. I had my first child when I was 20, just like you. It was really hard. I wouldn't want anyone to go through that." "Please, I'd rather not hear about it," Britney said, showing she wanted to end the conversation. But Kristen went back to her phone, making more calls for over half an hour. When she finally finished, Britney lay quietly thinking about what Kristen said. She realized that life would be tough ahead. Thankfully, she had her grandmother's support. Britney was finally allowed to get out of bed on the 3rd day. While walking down the hallway, she noticed many hospital staff gathered around a particular room. "Do you know who's in room 17? Britney asked Kristen. "There are a few special rooms here, and room 17 is one of them. It has a billionaire's daughter in it," Kristen explained. "She's spoiled and demands a lot from the staff. Her dad has been here several times to visit." Britney listened closely, curious about the differences in their lives. How could someone so fortunate act so badly? Maybe she had everything she wanted but was still unhappy. Britney had little in her life. She only had her grandmother's old house and her grandmother herself. Her mother was around, but their family life was complicated. Britney didn't want to add to her mother's worries, especially since her health was fragile. One evening, as patients were settling down for the night, Britney decided to take a stroll down the corridor. The room felt stuffy, and the hallway offered some fresh air. She hadn't expected to encounter a troublesome situation as she passed room 17. The door was slightly open, and before she knew it, someone grabbed her arm and pulled her inside. Inside the room, a woman in her 30s was dressed up despite being in a hospital. "Hey you! Stop shouting!" the woman said firmly. "You need to help me get out of here." "Why do I owe you anything?" Britney responded in disbelief. "I said you must help me," the woman insisted, not backing down. Britney realized it was pointless to argue, especially since the woman still had a tight grip on her arm. "I need to leave to check on my fiancé," the woman explained. "I think he's cheating on me." "But you're pregnant. He's probably worried about you," Britney suggested. "Are you going to help me or not?" The woman ignored Britney and continued. "I'm going to make my move, and you'll make sure no doctors see me." "Okay, fine," Britney agreed, just as the doctor's voice came down the hall. "Diane, where do you think you're going?" he asked. "You've been here for 3 days and we can't let anyone see you yet. What should I tell Derek and Ben about your condition?" "That's your problem," Diane said, lying back on the bed. "I want to go home tomorrow." "I wish I could, but we need more tests," the doctor replied. "Honestly, I've never had such a difficult patient. You should think about your baby. Britney, go back to your room." Once the doctor left, Diane complained, "They're so annoying. I can't do anything here." "You can't risk the baby's health," Britney said gently. Diane laughed and pulled out a small bottle of drink. "Let me tell you a secret. I'm not really pregnant. I just wanted to trick my fiancé." "Why would you do that?" Britney asked, surprised. "Does it matter?" "We've lived together for so long and he hasn't proposed," Diane continued. "As a businessman, and my father has high hopes for him." "So both your father and your fiancé think you're pregnant and you're lying to them?" Britney asked, trying to understand. "Isn't it a clever plan?" Diane smiled. "But you can't keep lying," Britney whispered. She wanted to leave, but Diane stopped her. "Don't go. I'm bored and need someone to talk to. Derek rarely calls. He's probably enjoying himself." "What happened when he had you come here?" Britney asked. "He found me with the drink and brought me here. Worried about the baby," Diane replied. "But what about you?" Britney asked. "He'll only let them check me if we get married first," Diane joked. Then, noticing Britney's belly, she asked, "Are you expecting a boy or a girl?" "I'm having a son," Britney replied before saying goodbye and hurrying out. That night, Britney couldn't sleep. She thought about how different their lives were. Diane had everything, while Britney felt lost. She worried about raising her son without a father, but she told herself many women did it alone. In contrast, Diane had what looked like a perfect life, but she was playing games while lying to others. Those thoughts weighed heavily on Britney. Eventually, she fell asleep as the morning approached, needing rest. When morning came, it was hard for Britney to get out of bed. A sleepless night left her tired, and her blood pressure was high, so the nurse called the doctor and Britney was told to stay in bed. As evening came, she felt better. She walked to the window to look down at the courtyard. To her surprise, she saw Diane with a tall man. Upon closer inspection, she realized this man was Derek. A wave of disappointment hit her, and she felt lightheaded. "Britney, are you all right?" Kristen, her roommate, asked as she rushed over. Britney passed out, and when she came to, she wasn't sure how long she had been unconscious. "You scared us," Kristen said. "Don't do that again!" Britney nodded, still feeling unsettled. She hadn't forgotten Derek, even if he had probably forgotten about her. He wanted to forget, but she knew she would always carry the memory with her, as if it marked her forever. The baby started kicking in her belly, reminding her of the life growing inside. Britney had to spend Christmas and New Year's in the hospital. It wasn't until the end of January that she could return to university to continue working in the archive, take her exams, and prepare for her baby's arrival. With each passing day, Britney found herself loving her baby more and more, eagerly waiting for the little one to join her in April. That year turned out warm and sunny. After completing all her exams, Britney submitted an application for a special academic program. She had only a few days before returning to her hometown, and there were still some things to resolve at the dean's office before she could leave. Britney's pregnancy hadn't been easy, but she attended all her classes and worked diligently. She even managed to save some money over the months, which should help them for a while. Britney tried to call her grandmother every day. Rachel looked forward to Britney's return and had prepared a room for her and the baby. Her mother helped as well, buying essential items for the newborn. On a seemingly ordinary day, Britney planned to visit the clinic to pick up her test results. After breakfast, she began to get ready, putting on a comfortable dress and draping a cardigan over her shoulders. It was difficult to bend down as her belly was quite large. After struggling with her sandals, she finally found her keys on a shelf and was about to leave when she heard the phone ring. "Hello, I'm listening," she answered. "Hello, Britney. It's Aunt Elizabeth. Remember me? I'm your grandmother Rachel's friend," the woman said, her voice shaky. For some reason, hearing her voice made Britney uneasy, a feeling of dread creeping over her. "Yes, I remember you. How can I help? Is everything all right with Grandma?" "Unfortunately, your grandmother has passed away. You need to inform the relatives," was all she could hear. Elizabeth continued talking, but all Britney felt was pain. She tried to stand but lost her balance and fell to the floor, losing consciousness. When she woke up in a hospital room, the first thing she noticed was her abdomen and the realization that she was no longer pregnant. An IV drip stood next to her bed. Britney tried to remember what happened and thought about her grandmother, hoping it wasn't true. "What about my baby? I hope he's okay," she whispered to herself, trying to get out of bed. "What are you doing? You shouldn't get up yet," a young nurse said, gently pushing her back down. "Where is my child? How is he?" Britney asked, gripping the nurse's hand tightly. "Don't worry, your son is fine. He was born a month early, but the doctors are taking good care of him," the nurse assured her. "Can you remember when you lost consciousness? Your neighbor found you around 10 a.m. If it weren't for her, we might not have been able to help your baby," the nurse explained. So Laura had returned and found me at 10 a.m., Britney thought, connecting the dots. She realized she must have fainted around 8 a.m., meaning she lay on the floor for about 2 hours. Removing the IV, the nurse advised her to stay in bed and then left the room. Britney realized she was in the intensive care unit. She felt relieved to know her baby was safe, but anxious to see him, understanding patience was needed. About half an hour later, the doctor entered. "Hi, Britney, how are you feeling?" he asked. "I'm a bit dizzy, and my stomach hurts," she replied. "Don't worry, your son is being looked after by another doctor, and he'll be in to see you shortly. We had to perform a section. It was the only option for you. Soon you'll be able to get up for now. You need to rest. Your son needs a healthy mom. Do you agree?" Britney nodded and asked if she could call her mother to let her know what was happening. The doctor promised to bring her a phone before leaving the room. An hour later, Britney finally got to call her mother. "Sweetie, I've been trying to reach you for so long. You know about Grandma?" her mother said, and her voice cracked as she began to cry. "I know, Mom. Elizabeth told me." "What exactly happened?" Britney asked, seeking clarity. "There was a robbery at Grandma's house. The police think she may have fallen and hit her head," her mother explained while crying again. "The funeral is tomorrow. Will you be able to make it?" "No, Mom. I'm in the hospital," Britney said gently. "You've become a grandmother today. I have a son." "What? But you said your due date was in early May," Kate exclaimed. Britney told her everything that had happened and how they managed to save the baby. Kate understood that Britney couldn't attend the funeral and tried to console her, encouraging her to focus on her son. The next day, the doctors allowed Britney to get up. She walked around her room, constantly thinking about Rachel. After lunch, they let her see her son. He was in a special room for premature infants. From a distance behind the glass door, she watched him, feeling joy fill her heart. Seeing her little boy gave her a renewed sense of strength and purpose. Later that evening, Britney called her mom again. Kate informed her that Rachel had been buried and mentioned Kevin's behavior at the memorial service, which confused Britney. She couldn't understand how he could act that way during such a hard time for their family. Britney stayed in the maternity ward for 2 weeks, hopeful her son would be able to join her soon. On the day she was discharged, nobody came to pick her up. Leaving the hospital alone with her son, she watched other girls reunite with their families, feeling a twinge of envy. Her grandmother's house felt empty and quiet, as if Rachel had just stepped out. After placing her son gently on the couch, Britney walked into the kitchen, where her mother had prepared everything for her return. "Here you are back," her mother said warmly, making Britney jump. "Yes, Mom. Paul and I are here. We won't be a bother," Britney replied, embracing her mother. "I can't stay here with you, you understand. Your father won't. Leave me alone. I'll go to work tomorrow, and I'll come back in the evening," Kate said. "I don't even know how you plan to manage all by yourself in this house." Britney replied. Everything will be fine, Mom. I won't be living on the streets. Grandma wanted this house for me. She took care of all the paperwork, and I'm grateful for that. Britney sighed. Paul will grow up a bit, and then he'll think about my studies again. Just don't come over every day. Please be careful here, and don't forget to lock the doors, Kate requested after preparing dinner for her daughter. Hurrying home, Kate left Britney alone with her son. Paul was sleeping, and Britney kept watch over him, tears filling her eyes. Just a year ago, she could never have imagined her life would change this much. Now, she was a mother, responsible for her little bundle of joy. Britney sat in the dim room, not turning on the lights. She imagined how nice it would be if Rachel were there with her. But the house was quiet, only the old wall clock ticking away the time. 2 weeks passed, and Kate visited almost every day, bringing groceries and helping whenever she could. Little Paul seemed to sense his mother's loneliness. He was a calm baby, hardly ever fussing or crying, and he slept a lot. One day, after feeding Paul and putting him to sleep in his stroller, Britney decided to do laundry. While hanging the clothes outside, she didn't notice her brother Kevin coming into the backyard. "It's been so long since I've seen you," she exclaimed, walking over to him. "You haven't changed at all," Kevin said, looking at his sister. "It's like you never had a baby. How did you manage this? And do you remember whose idea it was for you to go away last summer?" Britney replied with a hint of sarcasm. "Are you blaming me for getting pregnant now?" "This is your nephew," she added sharply. "I just thought I'd visit," Kevin mumbled, a bit awkward. "I wanted to ask about the house. Grandma's house belongs to all of us. When are you going to share our part? So you want to know when Il leaves so you can sell it? Well, just know this house is mine and it's not for sale," Britney explained. "What do you mean it's only yours? That can't be." Kevin started to get loud. "You can't treat me like this," he said, raising his voice. Britney handed him the documents showing that the house was legally hers. "Is that how it is? I thought differently," he said, suddenly quiet, turning away and walking towards the gate. He shouted, "I'll challenge this in court. Grandma couldn't have treated us like this." As he left the house, after the conversation with her brother, Britney felt more disgusted than ever. She couldn't believe he would demand the sale of their only home when she had nowhere else to go with a child. A few weeks later noted a problem when she returned home from a walk. The front door was wide open. Someone had broken in. Feeling scared, she pushed the stroller outside and called her mother. Despite it being a workday, Kate managed to leave work and rushed to her daughter's house. After checking the house, she realized no one was inside, but it was clear someone had been there. The worst news came when Britney opened the closet where she kept her savings and found it empty. All her hard-earned money was gone. Kate felt terrible, and Britney struggled to calm her mother down. They had to report the theft to the police, who promised to help find the thief. Now, Britney faced another issue: not having enough money. The help she received for Paul was not enough. After a sleepless night, she decided to look for part-time work. Finding a job that fit her schedule was tough. Her mother could help, but Britney didn't want to take from her meager income. She knew her mother's money was mostly spent on her own medical needs. The next day, Britney called her old friend Anna to catch up and discuss their situations. Anna also needed money and planned to find a part-time job at a restaurant. "I can't take a full job this summer," Britney said. "I can't leave Paul with anyone. My mom only has the winter to help, and my brother and father aren't interested." Anna sympathized. "You could work at big events. If I find something, he'll let you know." The two friends agreed to keep in touch. Britney was thankful and patiently waited for Anna's call. 2 weeks passed, and Britney started to worry if their plan would work. Then, one evening, Anna finally called. "Britney, I'm so glad you called," she exclaimed. "Great! Tomorrow is Saturday. Can your mom watch Paul? The restaurant has a big wedding planned, and they need help." "My mom finishes at 2 o'clock, and she has Sunday off," Britney replied. "I think I can make it. Just send me the address." Everything worked out smoothly. Kate came right after her shift the next day to help Britney. At 4 o'clock, Britney arrived at the restaurant and was warmly welcomed at the entrance. She learned that her job was to serve food and drinks, clear empty plates, and keep everything tidy. After changing into her work uniform, she braided her hair and entered the banquet hall. Everything looked beautiful, and the setup was stunning. The event was meant for wealthy people who didn't mind spending a lot of money, and Britney felt quite nervous. She was worried about making a mistake, but tried her best to hide her nerves. Many of the dishes being served were new to her. After the waitresses worked hard, they took a break, and Britney and Anna went into the restaurant's backyard where some unfamiliar men were cooking on a grill. The men were talking loudly, and one remarked that the money spent on this banquet could buy a nice apartment in the city. Another man mentioned the groom was the owner of a restaurant and hotel chain while the bride's father had a large construction company. They joked that this wedding was the joining of two big families. Britney listened as the men made mean comments about the bride. She and Anna were curious to see the newlyweds. At 7 o'clock, cars began to arrive, and elegantly dressed guests entered the hall, filling it with people. The couple came in later, and while Britney was in the kitchen, she was asked to bring a bottle of champagne. When she entered the hall, she saw the groom and bride at their table receiving congratulations. However, when Britney turned around, she saw the groom and felt like she recognized him. She looked closely, then hid under the table, realizing it was Derek, the father of her child. Anna scolded her, urging her to come out before someone noticed. Britney was scared. The hall administrator startled them, and Britney had to crawl out and apologize for her unusual behavior. Although she felt foolish, she made up an excuse. The administrator warned her that one more stunt like that would get her in trouble. Britney had no choice but to return to her job. She noticed her old acquaintance Diane next to Derek and hoped they wouldn't recognize her. After some time, she caught Derek looking at her, which made her uneasy. Despite her feelings toward him, she couldn't help but notice how handsome he looked. She scolded herself for even thinking about him, reminding herself of the pain he caused her. All she wanted was to finish her work so she could go home to her son. Around 1 a.m., the waitresses finally got a break. Britney stepped outside, sat on a bench, and looked at the sky, unexpectedly thinking of her grandmother and feeling sad. Just then, Derek's voice startled her. Britney tried to keep her voice calm, explaining she was working there as a waitress. Derek pressed her for answers and questioned her, suggesting that she might want money from him. Britney felt ill from his words and quickly left, catching a taxi home without changing her uniform. Days passed after the wedding, and Britney finally got her clothes back from the restaurant. Unfortunately, she didn't earn anything from the event due to her earlier actions. She shared everything with Anna, explaining how Derek was the groom. Anna encouraged her to reach out to him for help with their son, Paul, thinking he might want to support them. Britney felt strongly against this, afraid that Derek might want to take Paul away from her if he found out. Anna tried to reassure her, saying that from what she saw at the wedding, Derek was having a hard time with his bride, who got drunk and upset him. Britney admitted she knew Diane and recounted their past encounter at the hospital, describing how Diane treated her. Derek learned that the story of Britney's pregnancy was not true, but he still married her. In the end, they both got what they wanted. Britney had her son, and Derek had a drinking problem to deal with. The following day, the weather turned bad with a chilly wind and rain. After lunch, Britney decided to take a walk with her son, who was getting fussy and needed to sleep. She dressed him warmly, put him in a stroller, and headed to the nearest store, which was not far from her house. On her way, she saw a wet, shivering man trying to fix his car. "Excuse me, could you help me?" he asked. "I need some water for this container." Britney, being a kind person, agreed to help him. She took the container, pushed the stroller back to her home, filled it with water, and returned to the man. "Here you go," she said, handing him the container. "Have you been waiting long? Maybe you should ask someone for help to tow your car." "I would, but there aren't any volunteers," the man replied. "My name is Joel. What's yours?" "Britney," she answered. "My son and I are just going to take a walk to the store. If you don't find any help, I can offer you some hot tea when we return. You look really cold." Joel nodded and went back to working on his car. When Britney returned, she saw him still trying to fix it. "Any luck?" she asked. "As you can see," he sighed. "I'm grateful for your offer. Come inside to warm up and make a call." She led him back to her house. With her son still peacefully sleeping in the stroller, Britney started to prepare tea and set the table. You can wash your hands here, she said. Please sit down. The kettle is boiling. Joel followed her suggestions and enjoyed a hot cup of tea. You're very kind, Britney. Not many would invite a stranger into their home, he chuckled. I could see you're a good person, Britney said with a smile. Joel asked, May I ask you something personal? Sure. I have some time before my son wakes up, Britney replied, glancing at him. Do you live here alone with your son? Joel asked, blushing right after asking. Yes, Britney answered. Does that surprise you? Raising him alone is tough, but I manage. It's hard to find a job with a little one. I might have an opportunity for you, Joel said unexpectedly. There's a sports school nearby owned by a friend of mine who needs help with paperwork. I can talk to him and he might hire you. But how can I work there with my son? Britney asked, a mix of surprise and hope in her voice. You could do the paperwork from home at your convenience, Joel explained. Just give me your number and he'll call you soon. After chatting for a bit and making arrangements, Joel left, leaving Britney feeling hopeful about the job opportunity. Days passed, and Derek was eager to learn more about Britney. He visited his friend Gerald, who had opened a detective agency after college. They had been friends for years, sharing many memories. Derek asked Gerald for help in finding out more about Britney. Gerald had gathered some information. Britney lives in her grandmother's old house with her son. She's kind and smart, but life hasn't been easy for her. Derek was surprised to learn Britney had a son. Who's the father? He pondered. Gerald didn't know, but promised to investigate further. As Gerald continued his research, he discovered that Britney had a brother named Kevin, who got into trouble and owed money. A man named Michael had taken advantage of this situation, leading Britney into difficult circumstances. Derek became concerned and decided to visit Britney again. Gerald warned him that he should first find out more about the boy and if he might be Derek's son. Derek felt strongly that Britney couldn't deceive anyone. She was genuine and honest. Determined to get to the bottom of everything, Derek resolved to support Britney and find out the truth about her past and the future of her son. Given birth and was living alone with her son shook Derek deeply. After speaking with Gerald, he got into his SUV and drove to her home. It had been a very difficult day for Britney. She had spent the entire night working on paperwork to finish her tasks by morning. She really needed money. Paul needed clothes and medicine. Fortunately, he slept well at night, but during the day, Britney couldn't leave him alone for a moment. Exhausted by the busy day, she could hardly stand. Paul was fidgeting and kicking his legs. Britney had just turned off the lights when she heard a knock at the door. Who could it be? She thought. Maybe her mom would call, or perhaps it was Kevin, who always seemed to get into trouble. Struggling to get out of bed, Britney approached the door. Who's there? It's late and we're not expecting anyone, she called out, then started to head back to her bedroom. Britney, open up! It's me, Derek. We need to talk, he said gently, knocking again. Derek, what are you doing here so late? Britney asked. I came to talk to you. Please open the door. I won't hurt you, he said again. Britney didn't answer. She thought Derek would take the hint and leave. She returned to her room and soon fell into a deep sleep. Normally, she woke up before Paul to get things done, but today, the little one woke her up with noises from his crib. Opening her eyes, she saw it was already 8:30 in the morning. Quickly getting up, she decided to take him for a walk before breakfast, pushing the stroller towards the garden to the gazebo. Britney didn't notice at first that they weren't alone. Derek was asleep at the table, a peaceful smile on his face. The sudden movement startled Paul, who started to cry. Derek woke up. I'm sorry, I fell asleep here. I didn't mean to disturb you, he mumbled, looking from Britney to Paul. Hello. You startled us. I didn't expect anyone to be here, she replied, studying the man. Did you spend the whole night here? Your wife must be worried about you by now. My wife? No, I came to see you. Derek struggled to explain, his eyes on the baby. Why didn't you tell me you had a son? Is he mine? No, of course not. Why would you think that? I'm not the kind of person who has a child and doesn't know who the father is, Britney said, looking directly into his eyes. I don't think that way. I'm sorry, Britney. I shouldn't have left you like that. I acted selfishly, Derek apologized. That's in the past. You've moved on. I'm doing my best to raise my son. It's tough but temporary. He'll return to school one day. Britney replied, starting to put the baby back in his stroller. I know he's my son. He looks just like me. I want to help you. I won't leave without you, Derek insisted. Why are you so sure he's your son? And please leave before I call the police, Britney told him, wanting to retreat inside. But Derek held her hand firmly, showing he wouldn't let her go. Please, I just want to help. I don't want my son to live like this. If you won't think of yourself, think of him. I won't leave without you, he declared. Realizing resistance was pointless, Britney sat down on a bench, tears in her eyes. She didn't trust him and felt scared, but she sensed he wouldn't hurt her. Meanwhile, Derek cradled the baby and spoke to him. Hello, little guy. If I had known you were mine, I would have come much sooner. I want to make things right, he said as Paul listened with interest. After an hour, Britney gathered her things. Derek helped her and the baby into his car and drove them away. She informed her mother that she was leaving and promised to call once things were clearer. Kate didn't catch all the details, but she could tell that Britney's tone sounded okay. Derek brought Britney to a new 2-bedroom apartment. He bought everything Paul needed, filled the fridge with food, and promised to visit every day. Britney didn't know what the future held or what Derek was thinking, but she decided to stay in the apartment for now and observe his actions. One day, a few weeks later, Kate visited. She was surprised by Britney's nice living conditions. This Derek seems to be a good man if he can afford this place, she commented. Tell me, is he Paul's father? Britney confessed everything to her mom, explaining how Kevin had gotten her into a tough situation that led to her pregnancy. Derek wants to take care of our son and seems to care for me too, she said. You should stay with Derek if he loves you and makes you happy, Kate advised. Don't push him away. But Mom, he's married. I don't know if he'll ever get a divorce, Britney replied. Honestly, I'm living here not knowing where I stand. What matters is that things are good for you right now. Time will tell, Kate said. However, upon seeing that her mother was unwell, Britney called an ambulance, which arrived quickly. After examining Kate, the doctor said she needed to be hospitalized immediately. Britney couldn't leave with her mom, but made sure she left the hospital's details for Derek. When he came, Britney explained everything, and Derek promised to ensure Kate got the best care. The next day, the doctor told Britney that her mom needed surgery urgently. Derek stood by, offering to cover all the expenses. Britney just thanked him quietly. After surgery, Kate was recovering well. Soon, Doug came to visit. In the hospital, he looked at Britney differently than before, with love and gratitude. Forgive me, my dear. If it weren't for you, your mother wouldn't be here, he said with tears. I haven't been upset with you for a long time, Britney replied. Where's Kevin? Why hasn't he come to see Mom? Kevin, he's in trouble, and you and your mom don't know yet. Yesterday, the police came. They're accusing him of something serious, Doug finally said. What are they saying? Britney asked, worried. They're saying he was involved in a robbery, Doug replied. But don't tell your mom yet. She's still weak. This news could be too much for her. Britney sat down, shocked. This can't be true. Is that true, Dad? Is she really your daughter? Doug asked quietly. Yes, his mother said. And your brother Kevin, he got caught up in gambling. The people he owed came after him. To get money, he broke into Grandma's house. She must have caught him and tried to stop him. He panicked and pushed her. He didn't mean to hurt her, but she hit her head badly. She didn't make it. So Kevin carries that guilt too, she added. And you know what, Dad? He messed up my life as well, but that doesn't matter now. What matters is that he's not the same person anymore. He's become a stranger. I think he even took the money I worked so hard to save. Britney sighed. Forgive me, my dear, Doug repeated as he sat quietly in the hospital hallway. Back home, Britney told Derek everything. He stayed with their son while she visited her mother in the hospital. Surprisingly, Derek wasn't shocked by what Britney had said about Kevin. I found out yesterday, Derek admitted. Actually, my friend and I had suspected your brother was behind it for a while. He told me he'd stop by tomorrow. Well, come see you in the evening, expect visitors. The next day, Derek arrived with a man named Gerald. Britney made tea and baked a pie. To her surprise, the man on her doorstep was someone she had met before, Joel, the man who had broken down in front of her house one rainy day. You? Britney said as soon as she recognized him behind Derek. So Derek sent you? Did you help with all this? If I had known everything earlier, Joel began, but Gerald interrupted him. We had to handle it this way, Britney. Be honest, if I had told you I was Derek's friend, would you have opened up to me? Britney nodded slowly. You're right. Well then, don't just stand there, she said, stepping aside. Come into the kitchen. There's tea and pie. While Derek played with their son, Gerald shared everything he had learned about Kevin. Everything Doug had told her was true. Kevin had already confessed. Time passed. After 3 weeks, Kate was released from the hospital. She was feeling much better. When she heard the full truth about Kevin, she took it with quiet pain, as though she had known deep down all along. Of course, she cried and felt heartache, but most of all, she felt ashamed of how her son had turned out. She found comfort in her grandson, whom she now visited several times a week. One day, she brought Doug along. He stood awkwardly at the door, unsure of how to face the child he had ignored for so long. Why are you standing there like a stranger, Dad? Britney said gently. Come in. Say hello to your grandson. Look how big he's gotten. Doug didn't wait any longer. He picked up the little boy and held him tightly, tears in his eyes. Kate and Britney didn't say anything. They simply let the moment happen. Since learning the truth about Kevin, Doug had changed. He stopped arguing with Kate over little things and made a real effort to be closer to his daughter and grandson. Before leaving, he asked, What about you and Derek? Are you going to keep pretending you're just co-parents? It's not pretending, Britney said. We're raising our son together. He loves Paul and helps every day, but he's married. That's the truth. Is he getting a divorce? Doug asked. I never asked, Britney replied. He knows I won't live with a married man. Our only connection is our son. Let's leave it at that. Later, after saying goodbye to her parents, Britney put Paul to bed. The boy was tired and quickly fell asleep. A few minutes later, the doorbell rang. Thinking her parents had forgotten something, she opened the door without checking. But it wasn't her parents. A woman she didn't recognize stepped in quickly. She wore stylish clothes, a scarf around her head, and large, dark sunglasses. I've finally found you, the woman said sharply, removing her glasses. Britney froze. It was Diane, Derek's wife. It's you, Diane said with surprise. You're the pregnant girl I saw at the hospital. I never thought I'd see you here. So my husband's been running after you? I see, Britney said calmly. You think I'm nobody, and you're the one on top, right? You're clever, Diane said. What did my husband see in you? Does he even know you have a child? Where is he now? While you're busy chasing other people's husbands? My son is none of your business, Britney replied. Say what you came to say and leave. It's late. Late? Diane laughed bitterly. You're waiting for Derek, aren't you? You do know we're still married? It's wrong to be with someone else's husband. Then, to Britney's shock, Diane pulled something from her bag that looked like a small weapon and pointed it toward her. What are you doing? Put that down, Britney said, her voice shaking but firm. I'm showing you what happens to people who get in the way, Diane said coldly. People who ruin families and steal what's not theirs. Britney realized trying to argue wouldn't work. She sat down slowly, trying to calm the woman down and make her see reason, but Diane wasn't stopping. She stood there, her hand steady, eyes wild. Stop! A voice shouted. It was Derek. Startled, Diane turned, but not before a loud sound filled the room. Britney felt a sudden sharp pain and everything went black. When she opened her eyes again, all she saw was the white ceiling of a hospital room. Her mouth was dry. She needed water. Her mind went to her son. She's awake, said a nurse, calling for the doctor. Britney, can you hear us? The nurse asked. Britney nodded weakly and closed her eyes again. Her head was spinning. You're very lucky, the doctor said. The injury was not deep. You lost some blood, but you'll recover. Britney tried to understand what had happened. She remembered the pain, the sound, and then nothing. She had thought it was the end. She thought she'd never see her son or her mother again, or even Derek, whom she had started to care for, though she didn't want to admit it yet. The nurse gave her some medicine and wished her well before stepping out. Alone, Britney stared at the ceiling, thinking about her son. Where was he now? Was he okay? What happened to Diane? Who had called the ambulance? She had so many questions, but no answers. Slowly, sleep came over her again, and the room grew quiet and warm around her. The sunlight reminded her that life continued. "Hello, Britney, may I come in?" Her mother's familiar voice woke her completely. "I heard you can have visitors now, so I rushed over as soon as the nurse told me," Kate explained. "Where's my son? Where's Paul? Why isn't he with you?" Britney asked, her voice shaky. "Don't worry, sweetheart. Paul is with your dad. We had to change his feeding, and we don't know how long you will be here," Kate replied. "If it weren't for Derek, that woman might have hurt you worse." "I don't think I would have survived," Kate added. "Mom, where's Derek? Why isn't Paul with him?" Britney felt anxious, realizing something might have happened to her beloved. "Just calm down, dear. The worst is over. After Diane shot you and then aimed at Derek, she ended up hurting him too. Thankfully, the bullet missed anything serious. You both made it to the hospital and had surgery. Diane left when she realized what she had done. Derek called for help himself," Kate reassured her. "He's in the room next door, but he's still very weak." "Are you sure he's okay?" Britney asked, feeling worried. Kate understood her daughter's concern, so she went to the next room where Derek lay. "Hello, may I come in?" she asked gently. The nurse assured her that he was sleeping and safe. Kate promised to be back with Paul the next day and left. Britney spent the rest of the day resting. 2 weeks passed, and Britney and Derek were getting better. Derek's injuries were more serious than Britney's. Finally, she was allowed to leave her room and visit Derek. He was lying in bed with his eyes shut but opened them when someone walked in. "Britney, I'm so glad to see you. I've missed you. How are you?" he asked. "I feel much better now, but you're still in bed," she said sadly, reaching for his hand. "It's okay. Everything will heal soon and it'll be back to normal," Derek comforted her. Just then, Gerald walked in. He shared news that Diane was getting help for her mental health. The doctors found out she had been using drugs for a while and was under their influence when the incident happened. "Did you know your wife had a boyfriend before the wedding?" Gerald asked. He explained that Diane was seeing someone from the gym she often visited. "I don't understand why she wanted to marry me then. Yes, she was pregnant, but by the time we married, that was no longer true. I knew she didn't love me, and I didn't love her either. I just didn't want to upset her father. He was so eager for our marriage. I always felt he viewed me like a son," Derek said. "How is he handling all this?" Derek inquired. "He's managing, but it's hard for him to accept that his daughter could commit such a crime," Gerald said. "I have more news for you, Derek. Diane was never pregnant," Gerald continued. "She paid doctors to keep quiet about it. Now they regret being part of her deception." "Does her father know about this?" Derek asked, surprised. "Yes, he's been informed," Gerald replied. "I also knew she wasn't pregnant," Britney interjected. "I was in the hospital around the same time because I was at risk of losing my baby. Diane once demanded I buy her a drink while we were there. She was bored. When I refused, she confessed there was no baby and that she created this whole story just to marry you." Derek listened quietly, his eyes showing love and a wish for forgiveness. "Derek, you have a visitor," the nurse announced, coming in to let them know. A man asked to speak with him. "If it's important, let him in," Derek agreed. A 65-year-old man stepped inside and looked from Derek to Britney and Gerald. "I need to talk to you, Derek," he said. Britney and Gerald began to leave, but he asked them to stay. "I want to discuss something that involves all of us." "You're Britney, the girl my daughter harmed," he added. Suddenly, Britney recognized him as Diane's father from the wedding. "I want to apologize on her behalf. I don't think she can do it herself. I visited her, and she seems fine but is blaming you for everything. I knew she was seeing a trainer and asked her to stop, but she wouldn't listen. I feel responsible for not raising her better. I focused too much on giving her material things instead of love and attention." "Why did you divorce your wife?" Britney asked. "It's complicated. I married without love, just as she did. We both felt trapped. My daughter grew up in a broken home. I thought that was normal since my wife left for Italy and didn't come back. I spent years trying to make a successful life, hoping to leave something for Diane, but I see now she's not fit to take on that responsibility," he said, sounding lost. Britney felt a connection to him, even if she couldn't explain why. 10 days later, Derek was strong enough to get out of bed. Britney had already been discharged and visited him often, bringing Paul, which made him very happy. Autumn had arrived, but the weather outside was still warm. On an unusually warm day, Britney eagerly awaited the moment when Derek would leave the hospital. Though she hadn't talked about it with anyone, she felt the excitement building up inside her. Finally, the long-awaited day arrived. Britney put on her best dress and wore her grandmother's pendant, which she had cared for deeply. She believed that her grandmother was watching over her and helping her. At the hospital's entrance, Britney met Diane's father, who smiled and said, "I thought it might be tough for you with two men. Paul is little, and Derek is still weak, so I'm here to help." He picked up Paul, and the three of them walked toward the ward where Derek was. Derek was happy to see Britney and their son. He hadn't expected to see his former father-in-law there, but it made him feel comforted. The divorce was in progress, and in a few weeks Derek hoped to start anew with the person he loved. "Derek, you're not fully healed yet, but I believe Britney will help you get better," Diane's father said as he handed Paul to Derek. "I don't know how you two met, but I think you're fortunate. Britney is a wonderful person and would make a great partner." Britney and Derek didn't respond, as they both understood that Diane's father was being a bit hasty. He acted as if they were already set in their lives together, though they both knew that was not quite the case. "Look at your son," he continued. "He shouldn't grow up without a father. Don't you agree, Britney?" he asked, looking kindly at her pendant. Suddenly, Diane's father seemed unwell. "Ben, are you okay? We need a doctor," Britney exclaimed when she noticed he was struggling. Doctors quickly came to assist him, and soon he regained consciousness. "Britney, where did you get that pendant?" he asked once he was more stable. She assured him not to worry. "My grandmother gave it to me. She said it was special because it was a gift from someone dear." "What was your grandmother's name?" he asked with curiosity. "Her name was Rachel," Britney replied, realizing she had just touched a sensitive subject. Ben covered his face with his hands and began to cry. It took a while for him to calm down, and Derek and Britney found it hard to comfort him. When he finally stopped crying, Britney held his hand and shared more about her grandmother. "My grandmother is no longer here, but she told me about her life. She loved a young man, got pregnant, but felt she couldn't stay because of his family's expectations. She had my mother and worked as a nurse for her whole life." "You should have reached out to him," Ben said quietly, still holding her hand. "That young man was me. I gave Rachel that pendant. It was made just for her. I never knew I had a daughter or grandchildren." "Grandpa?" Britney said in amazement, feeling an instant connection. "I want to see the house where Rachel lived." Ben, still emotional, agreed. Once they all left the hospital, they drove to find the house. With Derek driving, Ben held Britney's hand tightly, as if he didn't want to lose her again. Britney suggested that Ben stay with her and Derek for now, while Derek would go home for the evening. The next day, Ben wanted to meet Britney's mother. She didn't know about Ben visiting, so when he and Derek arrived with Britney, her parents were surprised, but welcomed them warmly. "Mom, I wanted you to meet Ben," Britney said. "Hez my grandfather." Her mother's eyes widened in disbelief. "Is it true?" she asked, looking at Ben. They were soon lost in conversation, full of excitement and emotion. Later, Derek took them to see Rachel's house. Ben remembered it well, having visited often before, hoping to find Rachel, but it had always been locked. The memories were bittersweet for him. As they stood by Rachel's resting place, Ben reflected on the pendant that had brought them together. He felt a renewed sense of hope, now knowing that he had a family again. As time went by, Derek divorced and proposed to Britney. They prepared for their wedding, standing together as the registrar asked them to confirm their vows. With snow gently falling outside, Britney looked beautiful in her dress. "All the trials we faced made us realize we belonged together," Britney whispered to Derek, feeling happy in that moment as they started their new life together. After the big celebration, Derek turned to his wife and said, "I always knew you were the one for me. From the first moment I saw you, I was drawn to you." He pulled her closer. "They say everything happens for a reason. If it weren't for Michael and your brother, we might have never met. And our little Paul wouldn't be here. It's a bit frightening to think about what life would be like without them. Britney asked, "What about Michael? How is he doing?" Derek frowned. "That's a tough topic. I've cut all ties with him. I don't want anything to do with that man. The signed contracts meant nothing to me. He never understood why I did that. People like him can't be changed." He paused for a moment before smiling again. "But today is about us. It's our first wedding night, and I can't wait to start our family together. I dream of you giving birth to a beautiful daughter." Derek wrapped his arms around Britney, holding her tightly, as if she were the most precious person in the world. Britney rested her head on his shoulder and cried softly, feeling overwhelmed with happiness that they had both waited so long for.